Hello, everyone, and welcome to Police Off the Cuff Real Crime Stories. I'm your host, Bill Cannon. I'm a retired NYPD 27-year veteran. I retired as a detective sergeant out of Manhattan North Homicide Squad. Tonight, I have an unbelievable guest. He did 20 years on the NYPD, retired as a first-grade detective, but more than that, was one of the most knowledgeable organized crime detectives in the history of the department. He was also involved in a book called Friends of the Family, and I'll let him talk about that, which was instrumental in putting away Mafia cops, Louis Eppolito and Carracapa. And without further ado, let me introduce Tommy Dades. Tommy Dades, how are you, buddy?
How are you, Bill?
Doing good, man. I hope I didn't, pump you up a little bit too much,
Yeah, you did. It's hard to follow the guys you had on. Philly Grimaldi, Patty Russo, Chief Anamone, Randy Jurgensen. You had some great guys on the show.
Hey, I'll put you on the Wall of Fame, too, after the show's over, all right?
Thank you.
You don't mind if I show your book here?
No, not at all.
You want to tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, very proud of that book. David Fisher, who's a 25-time best-selling author, and Mike Vecchionne, who was the chief of the Rackets Bureau. We had the fortunate opportunity to have people interested in hearing that story about, Louis Eppolito and Steve Carracapa, which there are so many people involved in that case, So I was very fortunate that they picked me to tell the story. But it was a very interesting case and very a lot of satisfaction. Astrolight Productions just bought the book, they own the rights to the book now, and the talented Terrence Winters is the screenplay writer, and they're trying to do a continuing episodic series on the whole story involving everybody.
So you could be a rich man one day.
Nah. It'd be a nice about time.
We have fans that listen to the show from all over the country, some from all over the world, and I'm sure they're going to love your Brooklyn accent because they're always commenting on Mark and I on New York accents, but I don't think they've heard Brooklyn, though,
I've been told.
Tell them where you grew up.
Sunset Park, Brooklyn, 47th Street and 8th Avenue.
I don't think anyone listening from Ireland or from Italy or anything knows where that is, but tell us about the neighborhood.
47th Street and 8th Avenue, any of the guys you speak to that I still talk to, I'm friends with. I got friends that I, grew up with since I'm 13 years old. We still speak to each other to this day. It was a diversified, group of us, as far as, black, white, Spanish, whatever, all of us came from broken homes. We're lucky we got a pair of sneakers once a year for Christmas. We hung out at a bar called Flannery's on 47th and 8th. You allowed that 15 years old, you're allowed to have a shot for a shot was $1 and a beer was $0.25. Those were toilet papers. And on a Sunday, if you try to use the payphone, there were 3 bookmakers there that would cut your hands off. So but I had great times there. All of us, anybody that came from 8th Avenue was a special place to all of us. And I had a great time there, and I'm glad I grew up there.
So out of that neighborhood, you either became a mobster, a cop, or a fireman, right?
Well, a lot of guys went to the Marine Corps. There are a lot of guys that became cops. That avenue, it wasn't so much like the traditional organized crime. There was some bars on that avenue that I would put up against any organized crime plays. Walking into some of those bars was like walking into a Westies bar in Hell's Kitchen. And if you didn't know anybody, you had a problem. But a lot of guys became civil servants, firemen, cops. But a lot of guys went in the Marine Corps. A lot of us did good. I got a friend of mine that he was a CO for 20 years. He did 20-something years in the military. He was deployed to Iraq 3 times. He's one of my dearest friends, Eddie Pickett. And we had some great times up there.
And the bar you used to hang out was owned by who?
Was owned by Mr. Flannery.
Oh, I thought you said Sammy the Bull owned the
Oh,
bar.
that was Tally's bar. That's when we got a little older, we drifted off to 18th Avenue, 62nd Street, and
Uh-huh.
that was Tally's bar. And
Would you buy a drink from this man?
oh yeah, 100%. I mean, people think I'm crazy, maybe for saying it, but me and Sammy know each other a very long time, and
Yeah.
we have some great conversations. And I know him since I'm a kid. I know him in every aspect of his life, and he knows me in every aspect of mine. At the end of the day, we're just two guys that are talking on the phone either about boxing or politics.
Now tell us a little bit about your police career. Where'd you start out?
After I got out of the academy, I got sent to NSU 10, 7-0, 6-0, 6-2, 6-1. And then from there, I went to the first precinct for a while. I did a stint as an undercover in Brooklyn South Narcotics, and then got transferred to Manhattan South Narcotics, where I worked for the Honorable Chief William Ali.
I liked Ali. Ali was a good man.
He was a lieutenant then, and a great man, and I had a great time in narcotics. I did another 3.5 years there. Then I got transferred to the bureau in Brooklyn, and I didn't know anything about what squad. Just send me back to a precinct closer to home. So I did time in the 6-6 squad, the 6-9 squad, and the majority of it in the 6-8 squad, totaling 8 years in the bureau. And then I got transferred to the intelligence division, and I didn't ask to. I just got transferred there. And I got transferred into an organized crime unit where it was me, a lieutenant, a sergeant, and 3 detectives. And we worked in conjunction. We were deputized numerous times with the FBI, the DEA, and between the Brooklyn DA's office, the Eastern District of New York, the federal courthouse. We had an amazing time, and it was just a group of guys that didn't care what agency they worked for, just hardworking guys looking to work and have a good time and solve cases.
Let's talk a little bit about, and I want to show the audience, because some of these great mob stories of your knowledge of organized crime. In 1991, I think, to 1993, there was something that was referred to as the war. Tell us a little bit about that.
Colombo War. It was the second Colombo War that, in that family. And that whole war basically was over. Carmine Persico was the boss of the Colombo crime family, and the Honorable Rudy Giuliani, as the head of the Southern District, used the RICO law for the first time and put him and a lot of the bosses of the other families, underbosses, the whole administration's away of everybody in the family. There's Carmine right now. He just recently passed away. And he left the reins in jail to Vic Arena to run the family as the acting boss until his son, Alley Boy, got out. And as Alley Boy was getting close to getting out on, I believe it was a 8-year heroin charge. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure that's what it was. 4 guys were sitting on Vic's house, and instead of, he never reneged on giving the family back. They just felt it would be easier to get rid of him. And he caught the move. He drove home, and, the war started. But, he was basically, in that life, he was basically protecting himself and wasn't looking to hold nothing back. So now there were the Persico faction and the Arena faction. And they, people.
And then were the arenas from Queens?
The Arenas were from Long Island.
Long Island, okay.
I happen to know some of his sons who, one of them was a civilian, sweetheart of a guy, whatever life that their father chose, but he didn't start the war. The Persico side did. And then you ended up with over 2 years of, I think, 13 homicides, several people wounded, some innocent people. Somebody in the Genovese family actually got killed that wasn't supposed to be somewhere, so that's why they let it go. There were innocent bystanders killed. This kid, Mateo Speranza, 17 years old. Very sad story. Worked in Juana Bagels, and they executed this poor kid and his family. God, I don't know how they lived through that. I don't know what happened to them. I don't know how they've ever been the same. I actually, my team was actually the one that took the door down to arrest one of the shooters. It was a father and son team that actually killed him. You know.
Well, why did they kill him? Was it mistaken identity, or?
It was a shooting the night before of this guy Bobo Malpiso, who was a captain, and Bobo's son got shot out in Staten Island by a Persico. Bobo was on the Arena faction, and somebody they believed that this guy BF Frank Guerrera and Anthony Ferrara, who were associates at the time in the Persico faction, may have shot, or they were just looking to get anybody that was around that morning in retaliation on the Persico side. And a father and son team got dispatched to a bagel store that Ferrara and Guerrera owned. This kid, Mateo Speranza, I believe, was 17 years old at the time, just working the counter. Guy walked in, he ends up getting a can of whatever he put on the counter. He leaves it there. He never took a collar, so we didn't have his fingerprints. And he just shoots him, and kills the kid. We were working a day tour early in the morning. And eventually, I mean, we come up with a lot of other things, to lock him up. But that fingerprint on that can of soda was sealed his fate. And the father and son both ended up cooperating with the government.
Wow. And then they brought in this kid, Johnny Papa, right?
Johnny Papa wanted to emulate his father. His father was Gerard Papa. His father and Sammy and Jimmy Emma and a bunch of other guys ran in a gang back in the 60s and 70s called the Rampers. And it was a pretty rough gang, and a lot of them strayed off into organized crime from that gang, and Sammy ended up becoming the boss of that gang, but Jerry was the boss first. John, that means that before dishonor, an Italian that was taken the next day that we locked him up, and he was in the federal courthouse. He was a homicidal maniac, and Jerry, his father, and his father ended up getting killed in 1980 in Villa 66, which Vincent the Chin Gigante actually ordered, and because he was out of control, and he was a made guy in the Genovese family. John wanted to emulate his father. He wanted to be a made man in the worst way, and he ended up, he was a big drug dealer, and he would kill you in a blink of an eye. And he answered to a crew that was run by a guy named Big Anthony Russo, who was a street boss and a very tough guy on 13th Avenue. And he was aligned with Alley Boy Persico. That's Anthony. And
he looks like a scary guy, Anthony.
Very scary guy. Very scary guy. But the heart of a lion, John Papa answered to him. And I had gotten word from two very reliable informants that he was sitting on my house, because everywhere he would go, me and this FBI agent, Matt Tormey, would pop up. We were working a case on him. He ended up, well, that's Matt Tormey, me hugging him. That's my lieutenant, Kevin O'Brien, and my dear friend and partner, James Hawkins, in front of the courthouse after they convicted John.
If you guys didn't have shields in your pocket, you could be wise guys too.
Matt was an amazing agent, and we had a great time. It was a great case that we worked. When we find out he's sitting on me, my neighbor sees this red car, and I'm not putting two and two together. I just had moved out, to Staten Island, to the boondocks, and the neighbor says this red car is sitting there watching, and two informants tell me John Papa's trying to kill you. And at the same time, I'm getting Christmas cards from MDC in Brooklyn with someone pointing a machine gun at my then wife, me, and my 2 children.
That couldn't make you feel too good, right?
It was like, a little too personal when it involved my kids. Me, separate story, involving my 2 children. It's you're crossing a line and a boundary, and I always tried to be respectful to the families of the people that we arrested. And there were certain things I was taught by some veteran cops and veteran agents not to do, out of respect for the families, and it went a long way. But John, I find out later on. I mean, they tell me that he's looking to kill me. His mindset at the time, what he tells them, is that if he kills me, the case that we have on him will go away. They also tell me he's looking to kill Sammy Romano.
Right.
So Sammy was out in Arizona at the time, and I call Sammy, and I call the 2 agents that locked Sammy up. That we all still speak, the 4 of us. Matty Jacorko and Frank Spiro, 2 old timers that they don't make them like that anymore, and told them John's looking to kill you and me. And Sammy writes me a letter. At least I'm in good company on the same hit list, So me and Matt, we indict him on 4 murders. We knew about 5, and we suspected him in quite a few more. And he ends up killing. And he was with Anthony Russo, BF, Frank Guerrera, Eric Curcio, John Sparacino. Now, Eric Curcio and John Sparacino, John Papa killed them both on a hit to kill Joey Scopo, who was the underboss of, that's Greg Scarpa.
That's Greg Scarpa.
Greg, okay. Yeah, Greg was a very strong force on the Persico faction. Joey Scopo was the underboss on the Arena faction, and very close to John Gotti. And they figured if they killed him, they'd really cut a big power source. Uh-huh. And John Pop is the one that I believe actually put the fatal bullets into him at 18 years old.
Wow.
And when me and Matt finally get the indictments on him, now that we know he's looking to kill me, we don't want him to know he's looking for us. So we're not going to his house. We're staying away. We're just trying to get some kind of a lead on where he's going to be. And we find out he's going to be in the bridal party of a guy who John Sparacino's brother. The guy he killed, but the brother don't know it. So they're going to St. Anne's Church in Staten Island to a bridal rehearsal. And me and Matt find out. I forget how Matt did it, but it was very ingenious how we found out where, when, and who was going to be in it. And we're sitting in just an unmarked, SUV, whatever, nothing that you would suspect. Everybody's in there. Maybe another 10 more minutes, we're going to leave. And then all of a sudden, Papa's car, SUV pulls up. Him and his girlfriend get out of the car, and his girlfriend's behind him. He's walking in front of her. And I told Matt, let him just get on the stairs. So we got him on the stairs. And we both jump out of the car, and we both got our guns out, and I yelled my name to him so he knows it's me, not just please don't move. It's Tommy Dage, John, don't move, And he looks at me, and he bends down on one knee, and he just goes, yeah, right. And he's pulling out a gun, seemed like it was forever. It was a 9mm Taurus with 15 in the clip, 1 in the chamber, safety off. And he swings and I yell to Matt, gun. And he swings the door of the church open. And I got my gun, I'm maybe 7 feet behind him. And I got my gun at his head. And when I see the doors open, at 7 pounds of pressure, I was at about 3.5.
Yeah.
And I don't shoot. We run into the church after him. I hear the gun. I don't see it. I hear it hit the tile floor in the church down the aisle, and I heard it go right. And I yell to Matt, loose gun right at the pews. And I tackle him. And there's bad guys there. So basically, I got my foot on his back, and I put everybody to their knees. And cuff him up, and drag him out of there. Other agents and teams come. Matt stays behind, and they all want to know who the crazy detective was. We want his badge number. Matt told him the crazy detective just locked up the guy that killed your brother.
That's unbelievable, right?
They came to the trial. The mother and brother came to the trial every day. He ended up getting 2 life sentences plus 65 years. And Anthony Russo, in 2011, he ended up cooperating with the government. And me and Matt had actually arrested him, and he did some time on our arrest, and then he got arrested again. And this was involved in the Joey Scopo murder.
Wow.
And
Tommy, let me just shout out to some of our live chatters here. 12-Step Woman, thank you so much for the $4.99 super chat. Blondie, Melody McAtee, MC's Audio, Robbie Taylor, Cat in the Hat, Elise D, Billy Ryan, Investigative Group, Blondie 1025, Laura Rudolph. Who else we got here? Of course, the Pranzos, the great Lieutenant Pranzo from the Harlem Raiders from back in the day. He also had a hit put on him by the Colombo crime family. They never got him though, right? He's still out there. Hoppy, Christopher Strom. Good to see you, buddy.
Tell him I said hello.
Tommy says hello to you. Kathy Pulliam, Janine Goodwin. Who else we got here? Deb Hart, Glenda Pospisil. Bugsy Cruiser, thank you for the $2 super chat. Brandon Shelton. Joe Reek, Inspector Joe Reek. Joan Guerrero. Bob Geis, retired detective Bob Geis, great detective. Well, that's about it. I hope I didn't miss anybody. Tommy, go back to what you do best. Tell these stories. They're great.
So Anthony Russo, he cooperated finally. He did like 19 years in prison total. And Anthony was a force to be reckoned with. We hated each other on the street. But after he cooperated, we put our differences aside and we ended up becoming good friends.
Is he out now?
Oh, yeah, he's out. He's out working hard.
he's a good earner, right?
He's a good earner in what he could do right now, legitimately. He told me the true story that he gets a phone call that Papa admits that he's sitting on my house, and he goes and he meets Papa with another guy or two. And he tells him, are you at, not that he loved me. It wasn't for the love of me. It was the heat that would have got brought down on him. He goes, what are you, nuts? And he's like, what are you sitting on him for? And he really didn't have anything to make sense to say, but he admitted that he was. And Anthony basically told him, you kill him, you're going to find a piece of you in every borough in New York. And Anthony told me that if we had not locked him up when we did, that they were already conspiring to kill him, and we would have probably, another month would have went by. That would have been the end of John Pop.
Because he wasn't a made guy; he was an enforcer.
He wanted to be a made guy, so he was dealing a lot of drugs, trying to be a good earner, and he definitely, he couldn't fight his way out of a paper bag, but with a gun, he'd shoot you. No ifs, ands, or buts. Stone cold killer. He had black eyes, but he stood 4 foot nothing. You know what I mean? And not that means anything, but
right.
He wasn't a fist fighter. He just would shoot you in 2 seconds, and he killed all his friends. That's a sick part of it. Everybody he was killing was his friends, because who took credit. He'd get mad at you and kill you if you took credit for a murder that he was involved in, and you were taking the limelight away from him. And he just didn't shut up. He told the whole world everything he did.
When I was in the 2-3 squad, there was this guy out on the street. His name was Pistol Pete. And Pistol Pete was 5'2", 120, but everyone was terrified of him.
Oh, yeah. Your size means nothing.
He was a shooter. He shot like 7 or 8 people, and he might shoot you in the legs so he wouldn't get charged with attempted murder. He shot one guy 9 times in the legs, But when he walked up Lexington Avenue, it was like the guy on The Wire, Omar. When he walked up the street, people just started running,
We actually had John Papa's best friend, who was murdered by another group of Colombo guys. He called the mother up, and he blamed somebody else for killing. He blamed this other individual for killing her son, and laughs on the phone and admits that he kills this one guy, Eric Curcio, to the mother, and that Eric Curcio did not kill her son, and the mother testified against him at the trial.
Well, the big thing about John Papa, he was 6 years old when his father, who was an enforcer, was whacked, right? And his father also, Gerard Papa or Jerry Papa,
Yeah,
he did 16 murders himself, because I saw that you exceptionally cleared them.
He EC'd 16 murders as soon as he got killed. And I EC'd his murder when they indicted the Chin. The actual shooter, I won't even name him. The actual shooter, I believe, is still alive, and nobody ever was able to put handcuffs on him. But the Chin, Sammy testified at the Chin's trial, and Sammy and Papa were very close. And the Chin ordered his death. He was
for the folks out there, he's referring to the Chin Gigante, who for years played like he was psychotic in his cell, right?
Locked him up. He was naked in the shower with an umbrella.
He must have had fun playing that part, you know?
Well, what's the sense if you can't enjoy everything that they're enjoying? He walked around like he, God forbid, had dementia or something. You know what I'm saying? And most of the time. But he was very, very normal. I mean,
and his brother was a priest. In the Bronx,
and swore by him. 100%.
Yeah,
that's the truth.
But then I think later in the priest, he wound up getting arrested years later.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, you weren't going against a priest, man. I think you get struck down or something. So talk more about the war. How was the war resolved?
The war eventually was resolved where, everybody was, there were people on the Arena faction, people on the Persico faction that were not paying each other money. So there was no money being earned. And of course, that's the bottom line of the root of organized crime is money. No matter what it is, that's what it's all about. It's about money. So basically what happened was Alley Boy, Vic gets life in prison. A lot of guys get killed. Nicky Black gets killed. Joey Scopo gets killed. There's some heavy hitters that get killed. Guy Pasquale Amato gets life. And what happens is Alley Boy gets out. He got charged with some of the war crimes, and he beats the case. He gets out, and they kind of come to some kind of a resolution, where they're gonna make some kind of a truce. So Alley Boy becomes the boss, as the way they wanted it, while Bill Catolo becomes the underboss, who was a big Arena loyalist. And Billy and Alley Boy were close at one time, but then they were looking to kill each other. So now they're friends. And Alley Boy, you could see, I locked up Billy. I was involved he got locked up once by the feds where he beat the case. He was facing life. I locked him up on 2 separate occasions. They were meatball pinches. But Billy, he was a very respectful guy. He knew his role. He knew our role. He was very respectful to us. And Alley Boy just made him relax. And he brought him a brass popcorn machine for Christmas in his house. And he got him to the point where he didn't even have a driver anymore. So what happens to Billy is I was working with 2 agents, Jimmy DeStefano and Gary Pontecorvo. Gary ended up the head of JTTF for a long time, and two amazing agents. Gary's writing up a wiretap on several informants that we all have to bug a place. And the word is, what happens is the FBI's got a tail on Billy. And he pulls into a garage, and they don't just stop. So they drive around the block, and his car is gone. They don't know where he went. So there's guys waiting for him at the club, where he had the club on 63rd and 11th. And then there's a bunch of other guys waiting to get manicures and haircuts at Bruno's, which we were looking to bug. And Gary's sitting on a beach drawing up the affidavits to try to bug this place. And what happens is now the car comes back. They end up dropping Billy off on 92nd Street and Shore Road. And what had happened, Anthony Russo told me, Billy had met, Ali was going to go do about 18 months on a gun charge from a boat in Florida. And Billy joking around says, well, I'll be the boss. As soon as he walked away, he basically said, he's gone.
He's dead.
And 2 days later, they make it like he's meeting Alley Boy on 17th Avenue and like 76th Street at this guy Dino Saraceno's house. And Dino Saraceno is one of the guys involved in the Ralph Dolez murder. And
Ralph Dolez, it was an NYPD cop.
Yeah, he was a housing cop.
Tell us why that happened.
Why that happened? Because he married a girl named Kim Cano, who was married at one time to a guy named Joe Waverly. Joe Waverly is a heavy Colombo guy, very capable, has done a lot of homicides, been shot a couple of times. And he married her and had a baby with her. And it was basically a racial thing because Ralph Dolez was Mexican. And he felt it was disrespectful to him that his ex-wife was having a baby with this individual. And they executed this poor guy after doing a 4 to 12. And they got away. They beat the murder case. They actually beat that murder case in federal court. You know,
and they didn't make an arrest for years either, right?
No, it was a long time coming. I mean, Tony and Gotti and Dougie Hopkins and, you know, everybody and their mother worked on that case real hard. But it's a whole long story on how they lead up to grabbing the guys that actually did it. But Dino Saraceno was part of it. And Dino and Tommy Gioli was in front of Dino's house, and Billy thinks Alley Boy's downstairs to have a meeting. As soon as he walks down the stairs, Dino Calabro's down there, who's another Colombo captain, or maybe he was a soldier at the time, and Killing Billy gave him the bump up. Billy, from what I understand, just sees him, lifts up his arm, they shoot him, they kill him, and they bury him in Farmingdale, Long Island. Without a body, we attacked that case, and we indict Jackie DeRoss, who took over Billy's position as underboss, and Ali Boy Persico, and they got convicted in the Eastern District, denied by the Second Circuit. And, you know, the federal government did a great job prosecuting them. They got life in prison, and we didn't have a body at the time. Body was eventually recovered in Farmingdale, Long Island, in a shallow grave. And we had gotten his dental records back then. He had beautiful veneer teeth, Billy. And we went to I think his dentist was on Park Avenue, and we got his dental records, and that's what they matched it to identify him. Wow.
The killing of Ralph Dolez, I mean, that goes against all mob rules, doesn't it? To kill a cop?
150%. On the way he did it, it goes against all rules. You know, there's circumstances, there's other circumstances where if you're, you know, it's something for people to think about, even guys who are on the job today. And I never forgot what Sammy told me. You know, 30-something years ago, Sammy told me, don't be so lax when you're pulling over a wise guy, because most guys feel that just what you said. And he goes, you don't know what they just did. You don't know what's in the back of their trunk. And I have circumstances where guys just did homicides, got pulled over by a radio car in a different division of where it happened, and don't find out till right after, and the car's gone.
Right.
So basically, Sammy always said, just be careful, you know, be on guard, you know, as far as that, because when they killed Paul Castellano, that was a do or die mission. And if the FBI was there, if the NYPD was there, you know, those two guys, Bellotti and Castellano, were going, because the biggest question I had in my head was, how didn't they know any of all these guys weren't being sat on by someone? They didn't know.
Right, right.
Anybody jumped out to try to intervene in this, it was either they were going to die or the cops were going to die. So in a situation like that, it isn't off the record. But in a situation, what Joe Waverly did to Ralph Dolez, yeah. Or what John Papa was doing to me, yeah. That's something that you don't do, you
You
know?
know, like what you were talking about, you learned day one as a cop that there's no such thing as a routine car stop.
No, there isn't. And there's no honor amongst thieves.
No, shit can happen. Duty Ron, thank you so much for the $10 super chat. Ryan Investigative Group, Bill Ryan, Detective Bill Ryan, thank you so much for the $5. And this is fascinating. This is our guest, Tommy Dades. He retired as a first grade detective, out of the 6/8, no, out of Intel.
Intel. Then
Intel.
DA's
And then he actually went to work for the Brooklyn DA's office for 5 years after he retired.
the famous Joe Ponzi.
With the famous Joe Ponzi. But one of the things that I wanted to talk about too was Tommy Dades gave a lot back to the community, and I'll show you how he did it. There he is in his second career. I believe he was a 4-time Golden Glover, right, Tommy? Is that correct?
No, not me. We won about 12 Golden Gloves.
But you trained kids in the Park Hill.
We trained kids that ended up the light heavyweight championship of the world at a Park Hill boxing gym under the PAL with Patty Russo, who ran it. I was on the boxing team for a short time, and Dave Sieve raised a lot of money. The coach, he's a lieutenant. Patty Russo was a sergeant. Patty was on the team for a short time. They gave me a job under Patty with Gary Stark, the famous trainer, at a Park Hill boxing gym. We trained some great guys out of there, great amateurs. I was there 5 years, and then I went on to a couple other people with UL Judas, Ab Judas' father, training guys. Won a lot of Golden Gloves. We won some great fights. I turned a pro trainer for a short period of time. My amateur career, I had about 60 fights. Nothing to brag about. I took a good beating, is what I could say.
Did you ever say, "Cut him, Mick"? Cut me, Mick.
I was saying, cut me, But no, I had a great time in boxing, And Park Hill still exists to this day, and it's a great gym, a great program. And Patty Russo, Dave Sieve, Gary Starks, Patty Basciano, all those guys, they put their heart and soul into it, And boxing, amateur boxing is a great, it's a fantastic avenue to keep kids in inner city neighborhoods, busy. Guys are hungry. We being in the Golden Gloves in Madison Square Garden, which don't exist anymore, and winning those gloves, are like the greatest feeling in the world.
That's I am so enamored by what Pat Russo and all you guys have done for the kids in the inner city with these boxing programs, because you can't say enough about it. It keeps the kids off the street, and even if they never do anything in boxing, it helps them do things in life.
You know what? It's discipline. It gives you confidence, because when you have the confidence, you got nothing to prove. When you're out in the street, it's healthy, keeps you away from bad habits. And it also showed, what it did? I still speak to a lot of these kids today, and I love them to death. It just shows that, cops, like me or correction officers, put in a minority neighborhood that we loved. I mean, I got pictures of me with Marcus Brown, who was the light heavyweight champion of the world, with Mayor Dinkins, Governor Pataki up at the Harlem PAL. We took them everywhere, football dinners. My friend Eric Stangerby, who was a DA agent, his wife Allison runs the New York Giants, was always kind enough to give us tickets for all the kids from Park Hill to come down to these dinners. So we got so much gratification out of just seeing the smile on their faces, and especially when you're training a kid and he's winning these fights, and he wins his Golden Glove, it's the best feeling in the world,
And that's a boxing glove you're wearing around your neck,
yes,
there, right?
It's a Golden Glove that was given to me by Gary Starks, Christmas of 2006, and it's a replica of the real Daily News Golden Gloves that you win, and I'll treasure this forever.
That's fantastic. You want to play a little a game of mob vernacular?
Let's go.
Could we stump? All right, I'm gonna do the first one. If anyone from our live chat wants to run some mob vernacular by Tommy, we'll try to stump him. All right, what does it mean to get straightened out?
It means to become a made member from an associate to a member, an official member of an organized crime family.
That was an easy one for you, man. That was like a 10-point question. All right, how about a cuisine?
Back when I grew up in the '80s, you every 2 feet you walked on 86th Street, you bumped over one. So, it's just somebody that back then that I don't know, washed his car every Friday and Saturday, had slick back hair, Kiana dress pants, seamless dress pants, Kiana shirts, patent leather shoes, and Saturday Night Fever. There you go.
I used to have 3 detectives that worked for me in the homicide squad, and they were all Italian. And when they went out in the car, I used to call them the cuisine auto because they were always looking to go to a different restaurant every night. So we named them the cuisine auto. I don't think they really appreciated it, but that's what we called them,
Spinning sparkling ball on the rearview mirror.
How about guma? What's a guma?
Somebody who, if you're married and, that doesn't necessarily have to go for a gangster either, but having somebody that's almost up to par with your wife that you'd see on a Friday night, and Saturday night is reserved for your wife.
Well, it's like in Goodfellas. What did they say? Saturday night was date night with the guma. Was that right?
Friday night, I forget which night was the better night. I think Saturday the wife got. I think Friday night the guma.
Friday night was the guma. How about we always hear omerta?
That is the code of silence. That you don't talk. You keep everything to yourself, and that's part of the rules of La Cosa Nostra.
But yet, everybody talks.
Depends
how high the price is, right?
Not everybody did, and some people who did, and if you really hear why, listen, it's against the rules, period, but like cab drivers ain't the same. Ball players ain't the same. The whole world has changed. Traditional organized crime ain't the same.
How about the books?
The books is when they opened them in 1957. They were closed until 1957. They opened up and started making guys again. If the books are closed, you can't get straightened out.
I love mob lingo, And the other one. He's a friend of mine. No, he's a friend of ours.
Well, if you introduce somebody and say he's a friend of mine, that means you're an associate. If he's a friend of ours, that means he's a made guy. And you really need a third party to introduce. If there's 3 guys and one guy is two made guys know each other, and a third guy walks over and he only knows one of them, and the other guy knows they're both made. The other guy's got to introduce that guy to the third guy and say, he's a Miga Nostra. He's with us.
Okay.
He's a made guy. You got to be introduced by another made guy in order to acknowledge that. You can't just walk over to say to somebody, I'm a friend of yours. I'm a friend of ours.
Right, exactly. And how about the unwritten rules? Like, a soldier would never disrespect a captain, right? He can.
It's happened. Anthony Russo's done it. Sammy's done it. It's happened, and depending the circumstances, and then depending on the insult and what it was really all about, it was never an insult for cause for death. Just like where Anthony's captain would tell him, you're out of your mind. Like, what's the matter with you? You're crazy.
Right.
Or Sammy at a certain point, he had some things on his mind and he couldn't hold them back. I know some of those stories, but as far as like doing anything to a captain or anything like that, that could be cause for a very unfortunate future.
The other thing is a lot of people that aren't in the law enforcement business are somewhat horrified when they see how the federal government will flip someone, say like Sammy the Bull, who has, I don't know how many murders under his belt, over 20, right?
19.
19. And they cut a deal and he actually goes free, but he's like an invaluable witness
You know
that'll.
something, you start. The only thing I don't agree with, that's just my opinion. If you've killed a cop or an agent, I don't care what you have to give up on the table. I'm not gonna, badmouth anybody, but I've seen people get cooperation deals who've killed law enforcement officers. To me, that's like, just a boundary you don't go with.
Right.
But you realize in law enforcement how important cooperating witnesses are. I mean, the damage that Sammy did, the education to this day that he gives to people on things. Yeah, he killed 19 people, but he killed 19 people that knew. In Sammy's world, he was in the military. He got an honorable discharge. He was a street guy his whole life. He goes into that life. He believes that life so much. It's like he's in the Marine Corps, or
Right.
you know what I mean? So when he's killing somebody, those people that he's killing, they all know the consequences of breaking a rule or the possibilities, because they've all killed people themselves. The value that Sammy brought to the U.S. government, I mean, for what I believe is he's responsible for putting away 38 high-level members of organized crime who probably killed, times that by even 5. How many people did they kill? You know what I mean?
Right. Right.
So cooperating witnesses, without them nowadays, it's very hard. Not that you just take their word for it. You want to corroborate their information, but they're very informants, just like informants. I mean, how many times I've had guys that didn't testify that have committed, minor bullshit things, and you got a friend in the DA's office. Look, this guy's working with us. He's giving us this. He's giving us that. And if there was nobody that got hurt, you wipe it clean. You give the guy a pass. This is at a completely different level. There's WITSEC units set up. The U.S. Marshals are involved in this. And me personally, working with the government, I totally agree with it.
Is the Italian mafia now in New York City as powerful as they once were?
A reservation in a restaurant.
Is that right?
That's my opinion.
It seems like I'm sorry. It seems like the Russians are much more powerful now.
You know what? You don't really hear about a lot of, listen, technology today, and I'm sure everybody knows that cameras are everywhere. You're not going to be able to kill somebody and do things like you used to. I mean, the homicide rate with organized crime, I mean, back in the days, in the 80s and 90s, even the early 2000s, I mean, you hear the stories, you think you were in a good neighborhood of Bensonhurst, the Bay Ridge. It was a war zone. You just didn't know about it. It wasn't always out there. They were killing guys in places and you'd never find the body. You know what I mean? The bird sanctuary that Tommy Karate had in Staten Island, they heard him say, I'm Samsoniting people. He was cutting the bodies up, wrapping them in plastic, walking out of the buildings with Samsonite suitcases, bury him. One of the guys that cooperated tells a story that was with Tommy Karate. They're walking into the bird sanctuary with a body in the Samsonite, and 2 other guys from another family are walking out. You know what I mean? It was crazy. But today, I mean, I don't know what their racket is today. I don't know what they use. I mean, it used to be extortion. It used to be shaking people down. It used to be the numbers. It used to be drugs, the unions, the carting companies, I mean, you name it, they had drywall, you name it, excavation, they had it. I don't know how much there is, but there's not a social club. There's a couple that are popping up in different places again. The guys that got them are like the bottom of the barrel.
Yeah.
But from what it used to be, they elected presidents. I mean, that's power.
Right, exactly.
Now, I mean, I don't know what they're doing. So I really don't think you could even compare what organized crime used to be. And don't forget, the guys back then grew up hard. A lot of these guys that are involved in organized crime today grew up soft. And that has a lot to do with, what kind of organization you're going to have.
Right. One of our live chatters wanted to know if you know about the Bruno or the Scarfo crime family in Philadelphia.
Yeah, Nicky Scarfo, ran Atlantic City. Phil Leonetti, I used to do surveillance, and that was his nephew. He became the underboss of the Scarfo family. And Bruno, they killed him. There's a shot that's crazy where they kill him and he's leaning back with his mouth wide open. Nicky Scarfo takes over the family, and Sammy and Sammy and Scarfo were very, very close. There's a lot of stories that Sammy shared with me about things that went on with them. Scarfo was totally a fearless, ruthless guy. Leonetti, I've never met him, but if you heard him talk, he's a very intelligent guy. They ran Atlantic City. So if they ran all the unions to do with the linen, liquor, any deliveries. So if they didn't get what they wanted, all they had to do was make one phone call. They'd shut everything down. Atlantic City would lose a fortune. You know what I mean? And they ran it with an iron fist.
Well, they must have went crazy in when Giuliani took over, when he got rid of the Fulton Fish Market.
That was
he came out of the Javits Center. Remember that?
I worked I have 3 generations of family that worked for the Daily News, and I drove a Daily News truck in the delivery department, newspaper mailers delivery union from 17 to 21, right before I went in the academy. And I can't even tell you. That's why I was taking civil service tests. Back then, they made good money there.
Yeah.
I can't tell you what was going on down there. They called them the White Shoe Mob, and I still have a big, like 10-page article that was written about what went on in newspaper business till the government took over and have oversight over how the union is run there.
Well, I remember in the Javits Center, they would have the boat show, and someone would steal a $150,000 engine out of $1 million boat, and no one saw nothing.
No
one saw a thing.
It was probably being dumped off to somebody in Millionaires Row in Florida.
No, because they fired every single person. That you could have been an honest guy in the Javits Center, but they fired every single person that worked there.
Well, don't forget, then you had the Westies that were all involved with all of that stuff too, and then you had the Westies that hook up with the Gemini crew from the Gemini Lounge, and I think between both crews, they probably did 300 homicides. On Fountain Avenue, they were dumping bodies there that were never found. I'm telling you, at least 3. Frank Pagola, Kenny McCabe, Ron Cadeau, Joe Coffey, those were the guys. Tony Nelson from the FBI. They did all those cases. And, literally, the Gemini crew and the Westies probably killed 300 people easily.
Oh, was that the guy who was supposed to be the hit guy, Mickey Featherstone, I think his name was?
Featherstone and Jimmy Coonan. Mickey Featherstone cooperated. Jimmy Coonan was the number 2. He did not. And then you had Roy DeMeo, and you had the Gemini twins, Anthony Center and Joey Testa. You had all the Testa brothers. The Gemini crew was crazy. They were both crazy, out of their minds.
That's crazy. So when you went to the DA's office, the Brooklyn DA's office, after you retired, what were you specifically working on then?
I didn't finish the mob cop case as a detective. I got hired. I retired July 30th of 2004 and got hired by the PAL and the DA's office at the same time. I went to SIU, which is Special Investigations Unit in the DA's office. And we continued the mob cop investigation there. And that's where, that's where I was when they were arrested. And the feds ended up coming in. They were time barred on that case. And through good friends of mine, Frank Drew, Eric Stangerby, we reached out to an agent named Timmy Moran out in Vegas. And he was the one that set up the drug deal with a cooperating witness they had on the street. And once they made that buy with Carracapa and Eppolito, they weren't time barred anymore. And the feds came in and were able to charge him with, I think it was 79 counts on the indictment, and they were convicted on all 79.
But they both, Ippolito and Caracappa, both died in prison, correct?
Yes, they both died in prison.
So they never.
They were given 80 years plus or whatever. Who got 100 years plus?
It's crazy when you think when you've been a cop, you know how the police department works, that something like that could have actually happened. It's pretty amazing, you know.
You know, they were respected by a lot of guys, and at the beginning, a lot of people, you know, didn't care for me very much because of it. But it's a long story on that I can't talk about on why and how it started. But you know, it took a lot of soul searching before I did, and if I had to do it again, I'd do it tomorrow.
You know, they always say that no one hates a dirty cop more than a good cop, you know, because a
You know,
dirty cop makes everyone look bad, you know.
listen, nobody's perfect, and everybody there's a gray area everywhere. But you're talking 14 homicides. You know,
Right, exactly.
I mean, still 14 homicides.
14 hours. Lieutenant Peter Prenzo, thank you so much for the $10 super chat. Hello, Colleen Francois, Bobby Geis, Christopher Strom. He says, Tommy's knowledge is unsurpassed as a SME.
He's my hero, Chris. He was my boss in Intel, and him and Jack Cucci, Lieutenant O'Brien, Chief Oates, they didn't come from McCool, Tartaglia, everybody. I was very, very lucky. Very lucky.
Aviation 90Z Patriot, Robert 123, Diane B. I mean, Tommy Dade seems to have like an unending memory. He just can spit out these facts. You got like a photographic
brain
there.
surgery that way.
Yeah. You know, a lot of people don't know, and I talked to you a bunch of times. You're a little bit banged up right now, both from boxing and
9/11.
9/11, you know, so
I'm on my 10th surgery, and 9/11 tapped me on the shoulder about 5 years ago. But thank God, you know, with everything I've been doing and the way 9/11's been treating me, you know, the doctors and everybody, I feel good. Thank God, I feel, you know, better than I have in a long time.
yeah, I mean, you know, it's coming up on the 20-year anniversary, which is, I mean, it seems a long time ago to me, you know, but
it is. My mom died. My mom was dying during that period, and she died the morning I came home on the 16th. You know, so that week is always it's just a very melancholy week. You know.
yeah, you know, I used to teach at a college, and I would take the kids from the college to the 9/11 memorial, and they would all get all excited when they would see my name, you know, listed as one of the responders. You know, they'd pull it up in that little computer there.
Yes.
And it's a very tough, if you were a responder, it's a very tough place to visit. It really is, you know.
It is. It's that was such a sad time. It really was. And I think you know, that, and then what we just all went through this last year, you know, you never thought the world would be any different with the barriers up and everything after 9/11. So many things changed. And now, you know, with this corona stuff and the people that died and people got sick and the masks and everything else, it's like, I don't know. It's like I don't really relate to this world the way it is today, you know.
Yeah, you know, I was just talking about that. It's March. It's been a year. It's been a year that we've sort of been locked down with this, you know.
I was at the spine center, Columbia University, and the guy's got a mask on, the doctor, and he's checking my spine, and I need surgery that I can't have, and he's wiping his equipment off, and he wouldn't shake my hand, and I'm like, what's going on here? It's just as it started. It's just as people started walking around with masks on, you know.
Yeah. Pat Russo, thank you so much. New York City Cops and Kids Boxing.
God, he's the best.
For the $4.99 super chat. He's a gem. The heroes like you guys, and not just being cop heroes, but heroes to the community. Sometimes people that are on the other side that don't like cops, they get jealous that cops are giving back. When you show the selflessness.
Me, Patty, and Gary Stark together. You know, I have a picture of it, and I still have the award. We won the Black Achievement Award from Molinari for our work in Park Hill, and I thank Patty so much for giving me that opportunity to run that gym for as long as the PAL had it. But Patty's a very humble guy, and people have no clue of the generosity and the time and effort that he puts into running. There's 3 gyms left: the Berry Homes, Park Hill, and Flatbush Gardens, and all amazing gyms, all amazing coaches, and all amazing fighters. And Patty and Dave Sieve are 2 guys that are very much responsible for that keeping going after the PAL disappeared.
When we've had Patty on the show a bunch of times, and he's got a great sense of humor, but he's a very serious guy, and you're right, he's the most generous guy. I can't tell the whole story, but suffice it to say, he pulled a $5,000 check out of his wallet to hand in to contribute to something, and the person that he was handing it to said, "No, we don't want your
Patty
money."
was there for me through a lot of hard times, and I'll never forget it.
Yep, absolutely. So, what next? What next in the life of Tommy Dades?
What next? Just trying to stay healthy. Just getting ready to move. And I'm excited about that. And I'm just trying to stay healthy. My kids are doing really good. I lived through their eyes, and thank God I was blessed with 2 beautiful children. And that's it. And just I keep in touch with as many people as I can. I miss the job. I miss boxing. I miss a lot. But what I miss don't really exist. I mean, the boxing still does, but not the same. But it doesn't exist anymore. The job that I remember don't exist anymore.
Tommy, Sean Gelfand said, "One of the best ever. Love you, Tommy."
Tell him I love him. We just had dinner not long ago. What a boss he was. They didn't come no.
Was his dad a chief? Elson Gelfand? Was that his father?
I'm not even sure, because if he was, he never acted like it.
Yeah.
Sean is the best. Sean, what a regular guy. What a regular guy.
Dave Siev, he was a lieutenant, right? And he was involved in the boxing.
Dave Siev was there were the two teams, and Dave was the team that I was on. Ricky Frazier and Tommy Cadot and a bunch of other guys, and we trained at a Starrett City Boxing Club, and had some great. We fought on national TV in the Tough Man contest. It was it's sad because it was late August. I think it was August 28th of 01, and it was at Hammerstein Ballroom, and we fought. It was 13 fights. So it ended up 6-6, and there was a tiebreaker. And there were more fights in the stands than there were in the ring.
The better fights were in the stands.
I'm telling you, as I was fighting, I see guys fist fighting like over my head. And we had a great time, but it was like a week and a half before 9/11. And how the place was packed, the Hammerstein Ballroom. But it was on national TV. It was the real Tough Man contest. So FDNY fought the NYPD team, and we had a ball. And there was a mutual respect on both ends. I can't even tell you how much respect I have for the fire department, too.
You never lost to a fireman, did you?
Yes, I did. I fought them. I fought FDNY twice. I lost once. I won once.
Oh, man. That's all right. You have to be in it to win it. And you were in it, right?
As long as you're in it. As long as you're in it, don't quit. That's what it's
all right. There's honor. There's honor in just being in it, right?
You gotta have heart. That's all.
Tommy, one more story that I loved, and I hope you don't mind telling it. Tell the story about going into the social club and talking to the wise guys about the hit they put on you.
At around the same time that the thing happened with John Papa, getting Christmas cards in the mail. And they're erasing certain words, and it says there's a guy standing with a machine gun, and you got me and my then wife and my 2 children lined up getting machine gunned to death. Merry Christmas. And we just locked up a bunch of guys, 40 guys, and they were being housed at MDC in Brooklyn. And they were mailing it from MDC. And it kept getting these cards. So I mentioned it to Matt Tormey, and he brings in a guy from Major Case, this guy Jerry Donnelly, and they send the envelopes to Chronicle. And this is the first time I've had any experience with DNA. You could ask me a million questions. I'm not a computer guy. I don't know nothing about any of that stuff. And the DNA, what they did was they swabbed everybody that we locked up, and one of the guys that we locked up licked the envelope, and it comes back to him. But before I find that out, because he ends up cooperating anyway, and me and him, we talk it out. We have no beef with each other. And I just said to myself, let me go up to Bath Avenue with a sergeant from OSID. And I said, let me see, if I could talk to somebody, man to man. So before I got out of the car, I let him see my gun and shield, putting it away, locking the doors, securing it. And I'm there on personal business. And he's leaning back on a bar stool. And he was a soldier at the time. He ended up being the acting boss of the Lucchese family for a while. But he was a soldier at the time, may have been a captain. And I said, listen, don't acknowledge me. I'm not asking you to acknowledge me. I said, I'm just asking you want to kill me, kill me. You want to threaten me, threaten me. And, I said, I'm just asking you to leave my wife and my kids out of this, my then wife and my kids out of this. And me and the sergeant are standing there, and he basically looks at me, and his answer wasn't very gracious.
It wasn't what you wanted.
That I wanted to hear. And I guess just me and the sergeant know what happened after that, So it was a life learning lesson for him for the future.
Oh, that was good. That's a great story. I could see that could be a scene in a movie too.
100%. It was to this day, I laugh about it.
That's a great story, man. Yeah, I mean, you have any last words? We've been at like an hour and 6 minutes here.
Listen, I am honored that you picked me to be on the show. I'm honored for everybody that watched. I hope people enjoyed some of the stories. Half the guys you got on there I know and care very much about. And I wish everybody just to be safe, healthy, and be careful out there if you're still on a job. And just keep up the good work, And thank you so much for the police department, the DEA, the FBI, the Eastern District, the Brooklyn DA's office, for the PAL, for giving me so much to remember by and so much to be proud of, and never thought I'd accomplish an eighth of what I did in my lifetime.
Well, Tommy, I'm so happy that you agreed to come on the show. You're a real great American hero. And one of the things that I always say all the time, you can almost ad nauseum, is that one of the greatest things I like about doing this show is the superstar cops I get to meet, and we've interviewed some of the greatest cops on this job. Mikey Heinrichs, Chief Louis Anamone, Peter Anamone, great Peter Pranzo. I always get a blank when I'm trying to think of Tommy Kennedy, a superstar from the 3-2. Some of these 3-0, I'm trying to think. Vic Holyfield from the 3-0.
Great cops.
These guys were like amazing cops, and it's almost like a Hall of Fame. If I wish I could have a Hall of Fame behind me. I'll put it on your wall because your wall's empty right now.
It was something I want to sound like a cliche or sound stupid, but there was a thing on Blue Bloods once, and it stuck in my head. The show, I happened to like it, and the younger kid, not Danny, but the brother. I was on the set. Stevie Gardell was a sergeant on the movie set. I got a picture with Danny, but the younger brother, and he's talking to a girl, and she's talking about how being a cop isn't what it's, like it's a garbage job or whatever. And he reminded her that, he's been around, his family's been around all kinds of royalty and politicians and everything. And it's so funny how they just want to hear the stories that the cop has to tell. And the rest of everyone else's stories really don't stand up to anything,
They pale, right. They pale compared to the stories.
This law enforcement is a job. It's a calling. And when you retire, no matter what kind of job you get or how much money you make, it'll never replace the camaraderie and the feeling that you have. You had 77 precincts in New York, and besides the other places, OCCB and all of that. So there was always a place to walk into, where you felt you were at home, and if you needed help, you had somebody there to take you back. You know,
Absolutely. I remember the retiring Chief Luongo, Jimmy Luongo.
Luongo, great guy.
He said something one time that made just so much sense, and I immediately knew what he was talking about. It was a retirement party, and he looked around the room, and he looked at me, and he said, "Because not many people could walk into this room," and I knew exactly what he was talking about.
That's the truth. Like I said, Joe Coffey, I told you, he retired, and his famous saying was, "Thank you to the front seat of the greatest show on earth." And
that's absolutely, and that's been repeated now a million times.
Yes, 100%. Bill, thank you so much.
Tommy, you're the man. Just promise me you'll come back again, and
it's a pleasure. It's therapy for me.
bring Sammy the Bull with you. We'll talk.
Sammy with me. He's probably watching. I sent him the link.
That's right. So all you people out there, you police off the cuff fans, real crime stories, you just witnessed some of the greatest stories you'll ever hear with Tommy Dades. I want to thank Tommy Dades for coming on the show. Thank you so much, Tommy.
Thank you so much.
Everyone, good night from Police Off the Cuff After Hours.